Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. On this very special day, today, this show is coming out on June 20th, and that means it is the solstice, the summer solstice, meaning we're entering the season of summer today here in the Northern Hemisphere, and winter is beginning in the Southern Hemisphere. This is a powerful moment in our astrological year. It's one of the most magical moments of the year. And so, no matter where you're located in the world, this is a turning point for us. So, today's episode, we are going to talk about what the solstice is, and that's part of our future report because we'll talk about the solstice as it relates to the next few months and what is coming up. But we're also going to talk about something that I've been hearing a whole lot in my clients, something that actually last week, Damona Hoffman and I were talking about. And if you haven't had a chance to listen to that episode, go back and listen to it because it is such a it's a great episode, especially for those of you who are interested in relationships. And let's face it, who isn't interested in relationships? So Damona and I were talking about this. I've been hearing it's been a theme, a major theme in my client practice and my client sessions. And that is what we resist persists. How to stop manifesting what you don't want and start manifesting what you do want. I have a very personal experience with this that has recently come up. I am having a little bit of like that nervous jitters, and I am even going to let you in to a personal story. I'm going to get deep and personal with you all. So that's coming up in the second half of the show. This topic of what we resist persists. Why are we manifesting what we don't want to be manifesting? And how do we get to what we do want to be manifesting? All of that fits into this solstice period because those solstice and equinox points are the turning of the seasons. So it's the beginning of summer, fall, winter, spring. Those are, times of concentrated activity when we have to be very proactive and also very conscious about the types of energy that we're sending out, the types of thoughts we're thinking, what we are bringing into our auras, into our consciousness. And there are times when we really do have more creative potential to shape our own life experiences. So we're going to tie these two things together. But first, I have two announcements to make. Dun, dun, dun. So, what are you doing in September? I know you are joining me in New York at the Omega Institute in Rhinebeck. It's one of the most sacred spaces in the world. I love Omega. I will be guiding you through a workshop called Modern Day Magic, Own Your Power and Shape Your Life. And I can't say enough good things about this amazing this experience. This is my third time teaching at Omega, and each time it's been life-changing for me and it's been life-changing for anyone who's participating with me. This workshop is full of really deep, rich content, and we are going to deepen your intuition. You're going to learn how to access more of your spiritual gifts. You're going to learn how anything in your life, including a walk outside, can be a divination exercise so that you're in constant communication with your guidance and with the forces of nature and magic and the divine. So this is happening from September 2nd through the 6th. Extend your Labor Day and join me in New York. I'm also going to be leading a workshop, yay, tomorrow on the 21st called The 5 Keys to Financial Freedom in Your Astrology Chart. This is so important right now because we are going through an economic shift that many of you are feeling. And it's important that we look at our relationship with money at this time and that we look at our relationship with money personally, but that we also look at it in a larger context with where things are moving in the world. So this workshop is a 3-hour workshop on the 21st, and it is full of astrological information. It's full of practices. This is going to be happening on the Capricorn full moon. So it's a good opportunity to connect with other people, to open yourself to receive the goodness available for you in your life and in the world, and to eradicate fear, because fear can really keep us stuck, as we're going to talk about. So these are two things that are happening. And if you're in the UK, in August, I will be at the astrological conference, and I will be giving two talks, including the keynote on the night of September 1st. So visit, the links are posted underneath this below. Lots of opportunities to connect, to share, to gather, and to be a part of a sacred community. That's really what I love doing, and what I love doing with you. Even our conversations. These are sacred community conversations. With that said, let's get into the solstice. All right. So take a deep breath. All right, here we go. Are you ready? Sit down, get your coffee, get your tea. Extra points if you have magic hour tea from with my friend Zena. So get cozy, pour yourself some coffee or some tea. Let this just be your time to soak up some good information from your spiritual friend. The solstice, the word itself means the sun standing still. And it marks the point when the sun reaches its highest or lowest point in the sky at noon. What we have is we have the longest day of the year here in the Northern Hemisphere, and we have the shortest day of the year in the Southern Hemisphere. The astrological significance of the solstice is that the solstice happens when the sun enters Cancer. Cancer is one of those cardinal signs. It's a cardinal water sign that's ruled by the moon. And the sign of Cancer relates to home, it relates to family, its emotions, its intuition. It relates to the more receptive aspects of ourselves. And it's a time when we're called to not put all of our focus out on our public life, and not to be prioritizing external validation, but to really be inward. It's the most creative time of the year. Cancer being ruled by the moon being that center of the urge to create within ourselves. The sun is more that self expression. So it's creativity for self expression. Cancer, ruled by the moon, is the more embodied sense of I have this creative flow within me. And so that sun in Cancer is a time when we are nurturing seeds that we don't know what they're going to become in our lives. So the solstice is a moment of pause. It's an opportunity to connect with the people we love. A lot of people plan reunions and gatherings, family gatherings, when the sun is in Cancer. So it's no accident. In ancient cultures, the solstice was referred to as a time of renewal, a time of rebirth. You know, you have people dancing out in the bonfires, around the bonfires, not in the bonfires. That would be something else. But bonfires were lit to indicate the power of the sun. Rituals are performed to harness the energy of the sun. And it's interesting that here in the Northern Hemisphere, the season that starts with the rulership of the moon is actually the time when the sun is the most intense, when the sun is the most powerful. So many of us feel that this is a time to ground, to center, to prioritize more of our home life and home activities and home projects. We tend to feel more restful. This is a time when people want to take vacations. In the tradition that I studied, this is the season in which the sun god merges with the goddess and he's in love. And so what happens is that he begins to die to himself and awaken to his interconnectedness. So it's like the ego dies and he's awakened to the ways in which he's going to contribute, in the ways in which his life force energy can merge with another and procreate, create new life. And so for all of us now, if you think about the summer sun, when you go outside in the summer, that sun is so intense And if you've ever laid out in the sun, it has like an anesthetic effect where everything relaxes. You can't think too much. Summer reading, think about summer reading. Summer reading is like romantic. It is a story. It is nothing that you have to really focus or concentrate on, traditionally speaking, like that category of summer reading. It's like fiction. It's like curling up with a good novel. That is the epitome of the energetics of this season. It's forcing our mind to relax. You can't be in your best creative flow if all of your energy and all of your focus is directed outside of yourself. Some of us create really well under pressure. That's another story. But usually, the creative process is one that starts in the dark. It starts in your bedroom or in the shower, or it starts with a seed planted underground and opening up. And that's really what the season of Cancer is all about. It's about nurturing the seeds within ourselves. And we have the full power of the sun represented in the season of the moon. So there you have this prime creative energy, the moon representative of the soul, of the emotional imprint, of the stories and memories that we keep from lifetime to lifetime, or this lifetime if you don't believe in reincarnation. And so you have the season of the moon, which is the nurturance, which is the unconscious self, along with the full potency of the sun, which is representative of the spirit, representative of the I am creative essence, the I am here to do this essence. And so the sun represents the form that that creative urge takes. If you think about just the metaphor of the sun is a pure energy source. So we have the nourishment, we have the nurturance, we have the ideas that are waking up, and we have a sense of what form they will take. It's a point of inner activity. All 0-degree cardinal points, which are the start of Aries, Cancer, Capricorn, and Libra, all of those points represent a concentration of action. So they're very powerful points in the year. Every degree of the zodiac has a Sabian symbol, and I want to read this one for 0 to 1 degree Cancer. It is on a ship. The sailors lower an old flag and raise a new one. And so this encapsulates really a radical change of allegiance, a symbolic act, a point of no return. And I think the symbol is really meaningful for this particular solstice period. We can tell the vibe of, for lack of a better word, of a season by looking at the astrology of the solstice points. We'll get into that just a little bit as part of our future report. But, one thing we can see with the Sabian symbol is that there's a real shift, I think politically, I think socially, I think within our own personal lives and relationships. It's like, where do we want to raise our flags? And it's interesting to me that this conversation is all taking place when flag raising is up in our consciousness, not only with pride flags and communities having raising pride flags for the first time, many of them like Los Angeles, also communities fighting the raising of pride flags. We have Justice Alito's wife raising flags and getting called out for it. So there's a lot of flag metaphor that's taking place right now. Personalize this for a moment. Let's all do this. Think about your identities. What you wear as a banner of pride or a badge of pride. You're being asked to evaluate all of that right now. If you're a Democrat, a diehard Democrat, you're actually being asked right now to say, do I still align with my party's values? If you are a GOP Republican, a Donald Trump supporter, you are being asked to look at your beliefs and your identity and say, does this fit for me anymore? All of us are doing this in our own lives. We're being asked to look at the other identities too. Do I still relate to myself as a mother? My children are out of the home. Is that still part of my core identity? What are you taking a claim to? What are you calling into your life? Whatever flags we raise, metaphorically or literally, that is the energy that we are calling forth, not just for ourselves, but for our communities, for our families, for the world. Cancer season brings us into the full moon. So we've got a power packed few days here. The Capricorn full moon happens on June 21st. That kicks off this new season of summer here, a season of winter in the Southern Hemisphere. And this season ends right in between two eclipses, the eclipse on September 17th and the eclipse on October 2nd. And so we have whatever we give birth to, whatever seeds we're planting during this period of the sun in Cancer. So whatever seeds we are nurturing and nourishing right now, those eventually catalyze life changes, meaningful changes in our lives by the time we get into Libra season in September. So I want to show you just a few things about the solstice chart. So as the sun enters Cancer, it goes right into an uncomfortable aspect with Pluto. The Cancer sun is like, what do I need to let go of? What am I holding on to that I don't need to hold on to anymore? So this is the let go of your high school letter jacket. This is the, let go of that jewelry from the past relationship. It's one of those times when we're purging, when we're cleaning, when we're letting go, creating space for something new. We also can feel really self-protective with this influence, with the influence of Pluto. Like we want to put a little shell up and protect ourselves. At the same time, that North Node in Aries is making us feel like we want to take risks, like we've got extra courage. And so you can probably hear in the way that I'm describing this a lot of the tension that we enter into this season with. And some of that tension is about the election and what's, coming up here in this country. Some of the tension has to do with Neptune at the 29th degree, moving toward its retrograde station, a lot of unrest that hasn't been settled yet. And so we are really being asked in this period to pause, to not take on too many extra responsibilities, to ensure that our activities, that everything we're doing are aligned with our goals, and to use this as a time to restore, for self-restoration, for healing, for spending time in the water, for gravitating toward spaces that allow for relaxation and meditation. I kind of picture June and late June and early July feeling like we're all going through a baptism. And I hope that doesn't mean that we're going to have floods and weather events, although we are seeing a little bit of that right now. But with Neptune at that 29th degree, stationing on July 2nd, moving toward its big transition that that happens next year, we are finding grounding in a new state of consciousness, a new state of awareness. Our visioning power is more important than usual, than ever. And we're also looking for mentors and seeking guidance from those who have more wisdom. And so this is something that we're all encouraged to do, is look for who models wisdom for us, who models right action, who is living the life and embodying the state of being that we most are drawn to for ourselves. So this is a powerful time. How can you make the most of this solstice energy? Well, first of all, you can come to my workshop tomorrow. The workshop is the 5 keys to financial freedom in your astrology chart. Find it on my website, rachellangastrologer.com. So that's one thing. Number 2, you can set intentions. Take some time to reflect on what you most want to create at this time. Creative power is so potent right now. Write down your goals, write down your dreams, do some creative visualization. And we're going to talk about how in just a second. So stay tuned. The solstice is a really powerful time for moving your storyline forward. The sun's energy is powerful in warming up your heart's desires, in helping to nourish and nurture the seeds that you are planting. Anything that harnesses the power of the sun, soaking your crystals outside under the sunlight during this time. That would be a way to make the most of this energy. Definitely being in nature, spending time outdoors, going to the beach or going to the river, breathing in the air, getting out into nature. Nature is so healing, as we heard from Raquel in the episode on biophilia. Cancer's influence also encourages us to connect in a deeper way with the people we love. So gather with friends, start your own spiritual group, get together and talk, have a book club. Those are all rituals. Even things that we don't consider to be quote unquote spiritual are actually really spiritual if they're nourishing us from the inside. Now we're getting into part 2 of our show, and this is really the meat of the show, or the lentils if you are a vegetarian. And that is, why do you create or draw into your life experiences that are the ones that you fear the most? Why does that saying, that which resists persists, why does that ring true? And how can you change it? So I'm going to get personal with you and tell you a story. And this is a lived experience of this, what we're talking about. I've worked with people, I've had friends who have had exposure to mold, and toxic mold levels. But it didn't really register for me that this was such a health issue. I just sort of assumed that it would be like other allergies, like an allergy to pollen or something like that. I figured that it was symbolic of a real sensitivity of a constitution. While I did understand that it was problematic, I didn't realize how bad it was. Every time someone would talk to me about their mold exposure in a conversation, I would sort of like push it away. Like, I don't want to think about this. I don't want to look at this. And I had this like inner resistance to it. Well, cut to about a year and a half ago, I started feeling sick. My immune system was completely down. Anytime there was a cold going around, I would catch it. I couldn't travel without getting sick. I was sick for a year and a half with all of these different strange conditions: respiratory, sinus, digestive, neurological. And I would break out in hives. So I would have these hives that started in my ankles and feet and then go up to my hands. And then suddenly my whole body is full of hives. And heat would trigger it, certain foods, stress. And I was like, what are these hives all about? I can't understand this. And so I got different allergy tests and I went to, a hormone doctor because I was losing my hair. And then I was having this brain fog. And the brain fog was really debilitating. Like I couldn't form sentences sometimes and I was tired all the time. I was like, something is seriously wrong here. Meanwhile, I had had this little shed built out in the back for my work, my little studio space. And I loved my little yinden, is what I called it, my little shed. But the contractor who bought it did a terrible job. Didn't seem to care about the roof and the leaks of the roof. There was water that comes up through the floor and spills through the baseboards every time it rains. So it turns out I've been working in a mold box for the last year and a half. I started to see a doctor, a mold specialist, and realized how toxic this stuff is, that it actually is linked to kidney cancer and bladder cancer and neurological conditions like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and all of these things that I was like, I think I'm getting dementia. I think I'm getting like strange. It's been very, very strange. I think I have leukemia. I can't seem to fight any infection off. So it's fine. I'm getting help. I'm on a treatment plan. I'm detoxing right now in a very conscious way. But I've had to do a lot of reflection because I've had this resistance to talking about mold, to hearing about mold. And I've also had this like kind of bad attitude about it for myself. Like, oh, I'm not sensitive. This won't ever hurt me. This can't affect me. I'm invincible. And the reality is that when we feel a resonance for anything. When we feel like an anger about something, a deep resistance, when we feel a deep attraction, those passionate feelings are indicators that this is in our vibrational field. This is in our vortex, that we are attractors for that thing that most fires us up with passion. I think of our energetic fields, our auric fields, as this electromagnetic force field that's all around our bodies. Anything we experience in our interior world, our thoughts, our emotions, those repetitive broken record thoughts, all of that, it's like those are little tiny signals that kind of clump together and form this magnetic ball. And they are out there like radio signals looking for like frequencies. Our thoughts are like magnets, but our feelings are like bigger magnets. The things we feel passionately about, or we have a lot of energy around, those are like big magnetic balls of energy that are looking for like experiences and like energies. What happens for us is that we have this constant process of magnetic attraction and repulsion happening for us all the time. And it's not always direct. It's not that we feel something and we're really passionate and we immediately draw that things into our lives, but we draw in a like energy, which means we draw in something that resonates with the energy that we feel. So let's use the example of, let's say you want to be an entrepreneur. You want to own your own business. You put that out there. You're very passionate about it. You put it in your field. You might be more aware of all the different entrepreneurs, the types of people who are out there running businesses. And you might be more aware of those as you are looking for that signal that says you're on the right track or this is something to move away from. So I'm going to use my mold example. So whenever I think of mold or that kind of toxicity, I have a bad feeling about it. It doesn't feel clean. It feels dirty. It's something I just don't want. Now, I love looking at everything symbolically, everything through the lens of a metaphor. And what I know about mold is that it lives in very dark and wet places. And in feng shui, we consider that yin. I'm married to a feng shui expert. I'm a feng shui certified. And we call that yin energy, which means it's receptive, it's inward, it's intuitive. Now, if you know me, you know a lot of my life and a lot of my goals and my energy is directed outward. I am busy all the time. I like to be out in the world. I'm a very extroverted person. My identity is around service and giving back and busyness. The opposite of that is like, I'm going to be in the dark and I'm going to be in my emotions. I do everything I can not to feel emotions. It's not true. I actually I feel a lot. So mold is like the antithesis of what I'm trying to call into my life and how I identify myself. But mold right now is forcing me to sit still, to not have access to the very ways I've been living in this hyper yang mode for years, yang being more outward oriented. And so as I've reflected on this, I've realized how much I have let my emotions grow stagnant. I've ignored them. I've kind of like packed my emotions in a closet and shut the door. And this is, after a period of deep grief in 2020, I really just got busy because I didn't want to feel my feelings. So I just dove into work. I resisted sitting still. I feared not having a life that was meaningful after the loss I had. I was afraid of not being relevant anymore. And so I just really honestly just worked myself into a state of being sick. And simultaneously, anytime someone talked about their mold exposure, it seemed like that was an experience that was forcing them to basically put everything on pause and sit still and heal. And so I had so much resistance to it. Like, I'm not going to let this bother me. I'm not going to let this affect me. Whenever we deny an aspect of ourselves, it grows louder. Whenever we ignore the most tender and hidden part of ourselves, they cry out for attention. And for each one of us, that's going to look like something different. It might look like spending time alone when you really want to be in a relationship more than anything. It might look like losing your job after you've resisted going into a creative field or doing something different for so long. It might look like not having a lot of money or spending things or going into debt. Each one of us has this shadow side, this quiet part of us that doesn't get a lot of attention. It's kind of like the part of us that we kind of shove into a corner, we put into a storage unit, we let it hang out over where we can't see it. So what happens is people come into our lives and they are the embodiment of that, of like the narcissist, or the victim. And so those we get like fired up, we get triggered, like we get and we feel feelings about that. Anytime we have a strong response to something, that is indicative of a shadow of ourselves that we're not seeing, that is indicative of something that we need to go into within our own awareness. Everything that we resist in our lives, anything that we're focusing on, that we're paying attention to, anything we are directing our emotions, anything that's firing us up, that is something that is in our field somewhere. And we need to be able to open up to have a sense of neutrality and peace within ourselves whenever we think about that thing. When we look at every circumstance in our lives and see it as a manifestation, as a creation of something we desire on some level, then we can stop fighting with our lives and with what's happening to us. And we can be more strategic about the ways in which we are creating. So let's do a practice together to bring this home. Think about one thing that fires you up or that you absolutely do not want. Just allow that fear to come up and show itself. You don't have to go into the worst case scenario or, see what happens. Just sit there with the fear, acknowledge the fear, acknowledge it. Taking a couple of deep breaths, when we can neutralize our feelings about something, and in particular, the fear of something, when we can neutralize our feelings about that, then it loses a little bit of its magnetic attraction power. Taking a couple of deep breaths, bringing your body into peace. And now, just draw up a vision, draw up a feeling or an experience. Maybe it's a memory that feels better. If you're a visual person, visualize yourself in an experience that feels better than that fearful vision feels. And it's not that you are manifesting that vision. It's that in this moment, you're neutralizing and balancing your own energy so that that fear loses some of its magnetic attraction. I'm going to use my mold example. So I think about mold and I think about my little yinden, and I immediately feel grief. I feel sad. So I'm going to find a still place in my own centeredness. I'm going to take a couple of deep breaths. I can attune myself to it's all okay. And you can even talk to yourself like you would talk to a child. It's okay. It's okay. Bringing your body into peace. Now, when I pull my awareness into my heart, when I think about what would feel better in this moment, the first vision I come to is sitting in the sunshine, reading a book, reading a fiction book, nonetheless. Like sitting in the sun, reading a book, taking a vacation. I think about drawing on my sketch pad in the sun. I like to do that when I'm on vacation. And so immediately I'm pulled into the light. I'm pulled into rest and relaxation. I'm pulled into creativity. It's something in the same realm as that yin energy, that quiet, restful, receptive energy, but it's something that feels better. So try this for yourself. Think about a thing that you're afraid of happening and find an inner peace inside of you. Taking a few deep breaths, and then imagine something else, something that feels better. Good. What we are not talking about is condoning any kind of bad behavior that's happening to us. We're not talking about accepting our abuse or not advocating for the changes that we want to see in our communities or in the world. We're not talking about that. What we are talking about is the interior experience of reducing the pull of fear in our lives. There's a lot more to this, and I can hear some of your wheels spinning right now. But Rachel, I'm so afraid if this person gets elected, what's going to happen? Do the same process. It's not about affecting outcomes, although that is what happens. What we are doing right now is we are moving away from feeling like we are the victim of the circumstances that happen in our lives, moving away from that and moving toward, you know what? I know on some level I am a part of a creation process, and owning that power can make a difference in terms of how you experience your life, how you meet the challenges that you face in your life, and also how you live in the world and how you experience some of the global events that are taking place in the world. If we look at the symbolism of the sun god in the solstice story, I think it helps to expand the symbolism of this period that we are in, this season that we are in. It's really about merging with what we love, acknowledging that we are in a creative process, and that it's not just about us individually, that we're part of something bigger. That when we don't acknowledge the hidden aspects of ourselves, the shadow aspects of ourselves that are not consciously clear to us, then we're also going to judge the shadow aspects of our culture, and we're going to judge other people. So your willingness to look at your fear, raise it into the light, and bring a sense of neutrality about that to diminish its magnetic pull has a lot of ripple effects, not just in your own family and community, but also throughout the world. Because fear is a powerful motivational force, but love is too. So your call to action this week is to think about something that you fear, allow it to come into the light, find a peaceful place, and then focus on what would feel better. What could you imagine that would feel more enjoyable, more delightful, more prosperous than that fear? I want to be clear. Emotions are energy, and energy in motion. And so we're not talking about not feeling the hard emotions and blowing up or faking the good emotions. We're not talking about judging emotions at all. What we're talking about is the energetic magnetic pull that fear has, that all emotions have. And if there are things that we're fearing or that we're resisting, we're actually drawing those into our own experiences without being consciously aware of it. That which we resist persists. So feel your feelings, feel the entire spectrum of your feelings. Relish those feelings. Let them inform you of the ways in which your life is aligned or out of alignment. And when you get into a place where you feel off balance, when you feel like fear is getting a lot more attention than love and joy and, even peace or calm, that's when we want to create a state of neutrality. Your cosmic call to action for this week is to do that exercise, to identify something that you're afraid of, that worst case scenario, that thing that you don't want to have happen, to bring it up into the light, taking deep breaths, finding a state of inner peace, and then drawing in an imaginary scenario, seeing yourself somewhere or in something that is a contrast that feels slightly more prosperous, more delightful, more enjoyable than that fear-based concept. So do that. And you can do this for your own personal life. Experiment with it. Play with it. Share your experiences. Visit us at therachellengshow.com. You can join as a member for free, or you can join one of our paid memberships. But yeah, share with us. Let us know what's happening for you. Let us know what you're creating in your life. And happy solstice.